Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What's going on, guys? It is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL edition, Week 14 picks. Coming at you live tonight. With me, as always, is the fine citizen and co-host, Mr. Jacob Workman. Jake, what's going on, man?
Everything's good. Everything's good. Staying healthier than my football team, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're dealing with a little bit of a mess there in Detroit.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a little rough. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. Let's hop right into things here. Kicking things off with a record update. Last week, Jake finished 7-9, hit his lock with Green Bay, missed the dog with New England. The total for the year is 193, so 7 games over 500. I had the best week of my season. I went 13-3 with my picks. I did miss my lock in Tampa Bay, and my dog was also New England. I have now moved to 193, so Jake and I are tied moving into week 14. What's going on in Vegas, Jake?
So just a few updates. The Broncos are NFL best 10-3 against the spread. Rookie Bo Nix is 6-0 against the spread as a favorite, making him the first rookie quarterback ever to accomplish that feat. One Caesar Sports bettor in Louisiana wagered $30,000 on Jerry Jeudy over 58.5 receiving yards. He had 235, so he clearly covered that one. One bettor at Bet Rivers before the season started wagered $161,000 on the Chicago Bears to go over 8.5 wins. They are now 4-8 after losing 6 straight and do need to win all 5 of their final games to go over. Last thing, some current NFL MVP odds. Josh Allen is the clear favorite at -210. Saquon Barkley second at +350. Lamar at +950. Goff is 10-1 and Mahomes is 28-1.
Okay. Yeah, Josh Allen, I think, makes sense obviously the game favored Buffalo with that weather and everything, but still what he's been able to do so far with this team, especially losing a couple of their pieces but compared to last year, kind of makes sense. So we'll see if he carries it forward through the rest of the season. Let's hop right into some news here. Any games stand out to you last week you want to touch base on before we hop into some of the news and notes?
It was kind of a weird week with games being three games on Thursday, a Friday game, just some random things. The debacle of the Bears ending, that was, as a Lions fan, I was just waiting for us to lose that game. I couldn't imagine that's how it was going to go for them. Obviously all the injuries for the Lions, the Chiefs game ending with a controversial penalty. Of course, the NFL loves those penalties. A big fight in a game. So, there's a lot of things to touch on this week. It was an interesting week.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a crazy week for sure. We're going to kick things off with talking about the Bears there. Matt Eberflus, for those who are living under a rock and aren't paying any attention, has been fired as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. This comes after the questionable time management that very well could have lost Chicago the game at the end of their 23-20 loss to the Lions in Detroit on Thanksgiving. After the game, he was asked about the time management, and he thought that they did the right thing. And I thought it was funny that it was released the following day that he felt confident that he was going to be there moving into week 14. And then not like 2 hours later, it's like, Mike Eberflus has been fired. Offensive coordinator Thomas Brown's been named the interim head coach for the rest of the season. He did announce on Monday that wide receiver coach Chris Beatty has been promoted to OC, and Eric Washington is going to take over as the defensive play caller. Jake, where do you think the Bears should look for their head coaching vacancy as they go in looking for somebody to develop Caleb Williams and move this franchise in the right direction?
So in our college episode, I've got a little note coming later tonight of a rumor of a future Bears head coach. I'll save that one for the show. But for now, I will throw in one that I've heard from the NFL ranks. Head coach or offensive coordinator, now former head coach Lincoln Riley, Cliff Kingsbury from Washington.
Okay. Yeah, I think that could make sense, right? With Caleb being there as the quarterback, there's been a couple other names. I think Vrabel's one that I keep seeing just because he kind of seems like he's got the attitude that a typical Chicago Bear would have. But Kingsbury, I think, makes sense. At the end of the day, I think they have a lot more than just their quarterback to address, or their head coach, I should say.
Yeah, I think that they would be idiotic to not go offensive with their head coach, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. Unfortunately, they could have had Ben Johnson. I think they messed that up. And to your point, I think it was this last week or the week before last. Like Ben there's no way at this point I see Ben heading to Chicago after they passed on him last year. Which is unfortunate for them because Ben Johnson is a beast, absolute stud, and he is going to be a head coach somewhere next year. I have a feeling.
I hope not.
I hope. Well, for your case, I hope not. For my case, I hope he's wearing a Cowboys hat.
I think Aaron Glenn will leave. I don't know if Ben Johnson will leave. I think he's actually kind of happy with the role. Now, if we win a Super Bowl, that's a different story. But I honestly think the way that the coordinators get paid now in the NFL, I mean, we could pay them whatever we want. I mean, he could be the highest paid coordinator in the NFL and be content because he's proven for a couple of years now that he will turn down shitty jobs. Like he's not like, I have to be a head coach, which I think is huge for us.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Aaron Glenn's definitely another guy out there. But to your point, I do think Chicago needs to go offense. So we'll see what happens there. There is a possibility that Thomas Brown could maintain the job, but I think he's going to have to win out in order for him to even be considered for that. Next up, Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair has been suspended for 3 games without pay for his illegal hit Sunday on Jags QB Trevor Lawrence. Let's take a look at that hit. So before I give my thoughts, Jake, what are your thoughts?
I think we need to change the rules in the NFL. I don't see anything wrong with the hit at all. I think the problem is sliding. I watch more football than anyone I know, and you can tell the quarterbacks that have got hit before on a slide because they all go head first now. The injury risk from sliding is 10,000% higher ever than it was of when people were going head first. If you watch now, college, there's a lot of guys in college that will go head first. I think the coaches are teaching it. You actually hear some of them talking about it that way. When they go head first, no one even attempts to even go after him. In the NFL, I mean, and part of the problem is Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes will fake slide. He'll pretend he's running out of bounds, and then he'll cut back inside and run for 30 yards. Yep. That can't be legal. They can't allow that if they are going to call this bullshit, because you can't slide half a second before a guy running 15 miles an hour at you and is already about to leave to go to tackle you. What are you supposed to do? Like I'm a very offensive person. Like I love the offensive side of the ball. That's clear if you listen to this show. But this one's got to go to the defense. There's nothing they can do in this situation. They've got to get rid of this dumbass slide. And if you look at injury rate, they talk about injury rate on kickoffs. I've seen more people get hurt on this dumbass slide in college NFL than I have on anything. That is the play that people get hurt on the most. Get rid of the slide. That's the key. Yeah.
I had a feeling we were going to be aligned on this. I've seen a lot of opinions the other direction, and there's people on Twitter when I was going through and reading some of the stuff earlier today that have our tone of voice on this that are just getting attacked. If you watch that video, Trevor starts to slow up like he's going to slide, and then he takes 2 more chop steps before he actually goes down. At that point, Al-Shaair's momentum is already going forward, and you can look at these replays all you want, but the fact of the matter is that these guys are moving, to your point, 15 miles an hour
fast
at each other. Like it's impossible for you to change your momentum. In addition to that, if you look at where he makes contact on Trevor Lawrence's left shoulder. He could have hit him right in the head. He could have squared and hit him right in the chest. Either one of those would have been a more violent hit to the back of the head because he would have gone straight down with more momentum. I don't know if Al-Shaair was meaning to do that, but the fact of the matter is, like, he doesn't leave with his helmet. He doesn't launch. You look at the rules on launching. He is not leaving both of his feet when he goes to launch. Contact is on the far shoulder. I understand in today's NFL, they're trying to protect players, but at the same point in time, like Trevor Lawrence is 6'6", 220. He's not a tiny dude. Yep. And if you want to protect yourself, you have to do it the right way. And that's giving up sliding. Like it gives an advantage to the offense to have the rules set this way, where this guy goes to slide. And if he hops enough, he's going to slide in 2-3 extra yards for a first down play. That might be the difference in the game. So, yep. I understand trying to protect the players. I'm all about trying to protect the players, but at the same time, I feel like there's situations like this where talking heads and just broadly speaking, people have this opinion that he's this bad dude and that he's a dirty player. And one of the arguments that I saw was like Zahir being a dirty player, and like then one of the videos that we saw is where he threw that punch randomly when they were on the sidelines. Like, that's apples and oranges. Like, he threw a punch because they were jawing at each other. It has nothing to do with hitting a quarterback that's sliding. I don't subscribe to the fact that he did this intentionally to try to injure and get Trevor out. I don't subscribe to the fact that he should be suspended for 3 games. I mean, look what Myles Garrett did to Mason Rudolph with his helmet, and he was suspended for 6 games. Like, that's not even close. And it's not the same thing, but I'm just looking at it from a suspension standpoint. Like, Shahir's getting 3. None of this makes sense. And I know that they're trying to make a point, but to that point, the NFL is notorious for not being consistent in what their rulings are. So,
yeah, the slide is the key. Like, they've got to just outlaw the slide, because there should be no possible way that in this situation, if he were to, the defenders are going to get so afraid of this crap, especially with a 3-game suspension. They're going to get so afraid of this crap, they're not even going to attempt to tackle him, and he's going to say, okay, fake slide, and run. We've seen it multiple times already, and if there's no stopping that, like, why would a quarterback not do that? That's why Mahomes does it, because he's smart and he knows he's going to take advantage of it. Like, yep. He does it on the sideline, and he fake slides all the time, especially the sideline one. He does that sideline fake jog like he's going out of bounds and then cut up field almost every other game. He does it all the time.
Yeah. And again, to your point, from a safety perspective, Trevor would have been much safer if he would just lowered his head and gone to Shahir, because I don't know how big Shahir is, but Trevor weighs more than he does. Trevor's an athletic dude. It's not like I don't know.
But the thing you always see too, though, when they do the head first dive, is when you slide, obviously there's only one place you're sliding. And you're freeing up your whole upper body when you slide. Your whole upper body's getting hit regardless if someone comes at you. If you dive head first when you're on a full sprint, not only are you diving, you can dive a direction away from the person that's running at you. And when you're diving forward, they are not going to hit you if you dive to the side and forward, which you see all the time in college football. And there's a few NFL guys who actually are doing it now too. But for the most part, you see it in college where they've wised up to this and they're like, look, if we just dive head first, no one's hitting us. To me, it's much more logical and it's way safer, which is the opposite, because that's what everyone used to do. And then they put this shit in to try to avoid that. And you see guys get hurt way more with this.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why you don't see running backs going and sliding very often at all. They go head first into linebackers that are 60 pounds heavier than they are, because it's a safer way to do it. So,
and receivers do it too. Like, when receivers want to catch and fall, when guys are coming at them, they catch and they go down, they go forward. They don't slide. Like,
yeah. So hopefully they'll be able to figure this out. You make a great point with the whole Patrick Mahomes thing, because he does take advantage of it. And if you're going to have certain quarterbacks taking advantage of it, then that creates a competitive advantage on offense. And there's already a problem with barely being able to touch quarterbacks in the NFL anymore. I think the 3-game suspension is way too
crazy.
Much. So, all right, let's go through some more news here. Kansas City Chiefs became the first team in 2024 to clinch a playoff berth with their 19-17 win over the Las Vegas Raiders on Friday. The Buffalo Bills followed suit on Sunday by not only clinching a playoff berth, but securing the AFC East crown with their divisive victory over the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday night. They are still very much in the hunt for the 1 seed on the AFC side. Arizona Cardinals have signed running back James Conner to a 2-year, $19 million extension. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in the college episode, but former Colts quarterback Andrew Luck is back in football at the college level as he returns to his alma mater, Stanford, as the new GM of the football program. Miami Dolphins have decided not to activate Shaq Barrett off of their reserved retired list, despite Barrett applying to be reinstated this season. But they also don't intend on releasing Barrett or allowing him to play for another team, which is a little interesting to me. Steelers OC Arthur Smith, who has been rumored as a potential replacement for recently fired head coach Mac Brown at the University of North Carolina, has informed the university that he should not be considered a candidate for their head coaching opening. Speaking of the Steelers, with their 44-38 victory over the Bengals on Sunday, they have tied an NFL record with their 21st straight non-losing season. 18 of those come under Mike Tomlin. Jacksonville Jaguars have signed left tackle Walker Little to a 3-year, $45 million extension. While this is not breaking news by any means, it does sound like the end of the Aaron Rodgers era in New York is coming soon, as it's being reported as he is, quote, a long shot to return to the team in 2025. Despite continued struggles, Ravens head coach John Harbaugh has said he's not contemplating a kicker change as Justin Tucker continues to struggle throughout the season. Los Angeles Chargers have claimed safety Marcus May off of waivers from the Miami Dolphins. Something we reported on last week, Rams wide receiver Demarcus Robinson sounds like he is not going to face any punishment for his arrest last week on suspicion of driving under the influence from the team. May still get punishment from the league office. That's still to be determined. Free agent quarterback Daniel Jones has signed with Minnesota's practice squad. Good news for the Lions, potentially, considering all the injuries. Former All-Pro safety Jamal Adams has officially signed with the practice squad, and he's looking to find a spot on the 53-man roster as the Lions deal with the banged-up secondary, amongst others.
He actually is not going to play in the secondary. He's going to play linebacker for us.
Yeah, well, that kind of makes sense considering the Malcolm Rodriguez injury and all the other stuff you guys have going on. So he's big enough to do it for sure. I mean, he was a huge safety, so it makes sense that he would be a linebacker. Titans defensive back Julius Wood has been suspended 6 games without pay for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing substances policy. The New York Football Giants, who are currently on track for the number 1 pick in the 25 NFL draft, have visited top collegiate quarterbacks such as Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and Quinn Ewers this fall, reported by Ian Rappaport. And finally, the NFL announced the pregame entertainment for Super Bowl at Caesar Superdome in New Orleans. John Batiste, Trombone Shorty, Lauren Daigle, and Ledisi will all be performing. Kendrick Lamar will headline the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show. Again, I know John Batiste, or Batiste, however you say his last name, from being on the late night show. I know Kendrick Lamar. I don't know any of these other guys. Before we jump into injuries, or let's go ahead and knock out injuries first, because there's not much here. Christian McCaffrey is going to be out for at least 6 weeks with the PCL tear. They're not ruling him out for the season, but the Niners are going to have to make a run to make the playoffs in order for that to not happen. So it sounds like he's done.
They actually just put, like, right before the show started, they actually announced putting him on IR.
Okay, so
like just within the last 20 minutes.
Is that changed to still being at least 6 weeks, or are they saying IR and he's out for the year?
I mean, I think at this point that is the year.
Still the same concept. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So same thing's happening with Jordan Mason. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's also on IR. He's expected to miss at least the next 4 games. The Niners have claimed running back Israel Abeniconda off of waivers from the Jets. So the 49ers backfield is going to look a little sketchy for the rest of the season, it looks like. Chiefs wide receiver Hollywood Brown's nearing his return. He could be playing by the end of the season. Taysom Hill, Saints gadget player, suffered a torn ACL and additional knee damage. He's going to be out for the rest of the year, and it sounds like he's probably going to be missing some time into next season. Lions wide receiver Khalif Raymond has been placed on IR. He is expected to return before the season finishes. Meanwhile, we just talked about Jamal Adams. Linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez tore his ACL on Thursday. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. The Lions did sign linebacker Quan Alexander off of Denver's practice squad. So that linebacking crew is going to look a little different for you guys this week. I guess we'll talk about when we get to the Thursday night matchup, how you think that's going to impact the game. Jets rookie quarterback Jordan Travis sounds like he's been experiencing some setbacks in his recovery. He is unlikely to be activated off of the injury list before the end of the season. And let's see here. We talked about Trevor Lawrence. Dolphins outside linebacker Bradley Chubb and Cameron Good both have had their 21-day practice windows open this week. Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins has been placed on IR. He's going to miss at least the next 4 games. And Vikings cornerback Stephon Gilmore is dealing with a low-grade hamstring strain, but head coach Kevin O'Connell believes it's not going to be a long-term injury. All right, before we hop into the games this week, let's move on to a quick look to see what the draft order looks like. So we talked about this briefly about the Giants have been checking out some quarterbacks this fall. Right now, top 10 picks, we've got the Giants at 1, Raiders at 2, Jags at 3, Patriots at 4, Panthers at 5, Browns at 6, Jets at 7, Titans at 8, Bengals at 9, Bears at 10. And then rounding out the top 15, we've got the Saints, Dolphins, Cowboys, Niners, and Colts. And then pretty much everywhere from there, Rams, Bucks, Cardinals, this is all kind of still up in the air, depending on how all this shakes out. Anything stand out to you here, Jake?
No, not really. I do know that there's a lot of background noise for Shedeur going to the Raiders. I don't know if at 2 that would work or if they'd have to come up to 1 to get him. I guess the Giants maybe could potentially take Travis Hunter, but be interesting because a lot of the things I've read so far is Shedeur and the Raiders going together.
Yeah, the Giants, like, going after Travis Hunter, it just doesn't make any sense to me that the Giants wouldn't go after a quarterback in that spot.
I just don't know what quarterback it would be. That's my only problem. Like, yeah. I think that they might free agency, I think, is going to determine a lot for the Giants because I think they need a quarterback from free agency. I really don't think Shedeur will go there. And right now, I don't think there's another. I mean, I don't think Shedeur's worth it, but I don't think there's another. This is not a good quarterback class. So it's really tough to say, honestly. I don't. It's going to be interesting to see how the draft plays out because there's a lot of quarterback wise. Like last year, we were kind of heavily quarterback influenced. This year, it's like it's not good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everything shakes out here in the last few weeks. We've got a couple teams that are up here in this top 10 that don't need quarterbacks. When you're looking at teams like the Patriots, the Panthers, I don't think it sounds like if Bryce continues doing what he's been doing the past couple weeks, I'm assuming that the Panthers will stick with Bryce Young at least for another year. Cleveland's probably going to be looking for a quarterback. The Jets are going to be looking for a quarterback. The Titans, did they move on from Will Levis? If I'm them, I would be looking, especially in that 8 spot. Bengals obviously aren't looking for anybody. Bears aren't looking for anybody. So we'll see. There's always going to be trades and shakeups and stuff like that. The 25 draft show will be interesting and entertaining as it was this last year. So we'll keep an eye and update you guys through the rest of the season as we move forward here. Let's take a quick look at the playoff picture. This has moved just slightly, but it broadly looks like it did last week. On the NFC side of the equation, the 4-5 matchup, we've got the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons. 6-3 matchup has the Green Bay Packers traveling to Seattle to play the Seahawks. And the 7-seed Washington Commanders would be traveling to Philly to play the Eagles in an NFC East showdown in a wild card matchup first round. Lions are obviously still sitting at the bye on the NFC side. On the AFC side, we have the Los Angeles Chargers in the 5 spot traveling to Houston to play the Texans. Baltimore Ravens are sitting in the 6th spot traveling to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. That would be a hell of a first round matchup. And then we've got the Denver Broncos sitting in the 7th spot traveling to Buffalo to play the Bills. I think that's actually potentially a fun matchup for Buffalo there. They're looking really good right now, but Sean Payton's got this Broncos team looking pretty good considering the health that they're dealing with, the younger guys that they have on the squad. Jake, looking at the Lions here with their first round bye, realistically, you guys are looking at, probably either Packers, Vikings, or Commanders. Between those 3 teams, which one are you wanting to run into first?
Yeah, I don't even know if I can even predict it right now, just because if you look at the way the schedules play out the rest of the year, I honestly think Philly's going to end up getting the bye. My hope is that we can just hold on to win the division because, as you can see, 3 of the 4 in the division are going to make the playoffs. I mean, the NFC playoffs are pretty much set with the exception of that NFC West champion. I feel for any good wild card team this year because they're not making it. The Packers, the Vikings, and the Commanders are going to make it. Like it's literally the NFC the NFC playoffs are set with the exception of the NFC West winner, and anyone can win that right now. It's crazy, but I'm kind of skeptical on the Lions holding on to this 1 seed just because the Eagles' schedule is so favorable. I think the only tough games they have, and one of them is a stretch, is Dallas, and the other one is the Commanders. But with Dallas being a division game, I will call that still a tough game. But their other games are trash, where the Lions still play the Bills, they still play the Vikings, they still play the Packers. That's not easy, and we're at Chicago still. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that – and we're at San Francisco, which I shouldn't really just be throwing that away. I kind of am just because of all the injuries they've had. But I mean, their schedule is way easier than ours is, and it kind of scares me. I'm honestly just hoping at this point we can hold on to win the division so we can at least get a home game.
Yeah, the Eagles' last 5 games of the season, they've got the Panthers this week at home, and then they stay at home next week to play the Steelers, which isn't going to be a shoo-in game. Then they travel to Washington to play the Commanders. The Commanders played way better the first half of the season than they have so far the second half. We'll see how that shakes out. Then they're back home to play the Cowboys on the 29th of December, and then their last regular season home game, or the last regular season game, is at home January 5th to play the Giants. On the Lions side of the equation, you guys have Packers this Thursday at home. Next week, you are hosting the Bills, and then you travel to Chicago, travel to Niners, San Fran, Minnesota, and then back home to play Minnesota at home. So, yeah, there's definitely an
huge
easier path. Yeah, there for sure.
And we're injured.
And you're injured, yeah. So we'll see what happens.
The next 2 games are going to go a long way. We play the Packers Thursday, then we've got an extended bye to play the Bills at home. So we do have a little extended week. Hopefully we can get some things fixed in that week for the Bills to come to Detroit, because these next 2 games are huge.
Yeah, on the Vikings side of the equation, the Vikings have the Falcons at home. They stay at home next week to play the Bears. Then they travel to Seattle to play the Seahawks. Back home to play the Packers, and then they obviously finish the season with you. So there's one team in the NFC that I've been talking about the past couple of weeks. It's not in this picture right now. It's the Tampa Bay Bucks. I have a feeling they're going to land in that NFC South spot, but we'll see what happens there. Baker's a little banged up right now, so hopefully he can.
Yeah, that's the other, like, that's the NFC West and the NFC South. Those are the 2 that are open. Like, to me, the wild cards are, you have no hope. Like, you need to win one of those 2. That's why it kind of sucks for like a team like the Rams that are kind of going to be oncoming. Like, I feel like they're going to close the year pretty strong, but if they don't end up in that winning the division, they might be a really high win total team that doesn't end up in there.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit more shaken up going on the AFC side. NFC side is pretty solidified, but we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to our Week 14 picks. We are starting off our Thursday night matchup is a major NFC North battle as the 9-3 Green Bay Packers travel to Motor City to take on the 11-1 Detroit Lions. 8:15 p.m. kickoff at Ford Field on Amazon Prime. Both teams are coming off of Thanksgiving Day games as the Packers hit the road looking for their 4th straight win after beating the Dolphins 30-17, while the Lions stick around in Detroit and are looking for their 11th straight win after a 23-20 victory over the Chicago Bears. Over-under in this one is 51.5. Detroit is favored by 3.5.
Yeah, it just scares me with our defense in this game. Last year, the Packers came in on Thanksgiving and we got 0 pressure, and Love had a fucking field day. I'm kind of skeptical that might happen again. I'm going to take the Packers plus the 3.5. We need to find a way to win this game. I don't care if we win by 1 point. We just need to find a way to win this game.
Yeah, Green Bay won the last matchup in Ford Field last year. This Detroit team is different, but again, to your point, dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. The Packers are going to need to replicate their rush defense from Week 9 because they held Detroit to, I think, under 130 yards on the ground, which is significant for playing the Detroit Lions. I have a feeling Detroit's going to find a way to win this game, but I don't like the 3.5 spread. I think this should be a little bit closer. So I'm going to take Green Bay in the points here with the thought that Green Bay is probably going to keep it within 3. The first of our 1 p.m. games features the 2-10 Las Vegas Raiders as they head to the Gulf Coast to face off against the 6-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 1 p.m. at the Ray J on CBS. Vegas continues their road trip and is looking to avoid their 9th straight loss after a frustrating 2-point defeat at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. While Tampa returns home and looks to make it 3 straight victories after escaping Charlotte with a 26-23 overtime victory against the Carolina Panthers. Over-under is 46.5. Tampa Bay is favored by 6.5.
Yeah, the Raiders on a back-to-back away. I know they do have a little bit of an extended week because they played on Friday, but I still like the Bucs to come home and get this one. I'm going to take them minus the 6.5.
Yeah, I know Baker's a little banged up right now, but the Raiders are they're eliminated from the playoffs at this point. I just don't think they have much to show up for, so I'm with you. I'm going to take Tampa here to win and cover. Next up, we have the 3-9 Cleveland Jameses, the Browns, as they head to Steel City to take on the 9-3 Pittsburgh Steelers, 1 p.m. at Acrisure Stadium on CBS. Cleveland's coming off a tough, high-scoring 41-32 loss to the Broncos in Denver, while the Steelers return home looking for their second straight win after escaping with a 6-point victory over the Bengals in Cincinnati. Over-under is 43.5. Pittsburgh is favored by 6.5.
Yeah, Jameis continues to be the greatest real-life movie character of all time. Also, shout out to AFC North Hard Knocks kicking off tonight. Can't wait for that because, there's going to be loads of Jameis in that too, which I can't wait for. Hopefully the Lord does give him his blessing of not having him throw any more pick sixes. I just don't think on a short week coming back that this is going to be good for them. I'm going to take Pittsburgh -6.5. And I mean, I love Jameis, but you can't have him throw the ball 60 times and not expect some turnovers. So maybe we be a little smarter with that offense, Stefanski.
Yeah, I agree with that. Lean into your run game a little bit more. Chubb's back. I don't think Pittsburgh isn't going to come into this game, though, ready to return the favor from the Week 12 matchup here. So I'm also going to go Steelers to win and cover at home. Next up, we have an AFC South matchup as the 2-10 Jacksonville Jaguars head to Nash Vegas to take on the 3-9 Tennessee Titans, 1 p.m. at Nissan Stadium on CBS. Jacksonville hits the road looking to avoid their 6th straight loss after a 3-point defeat to the Houston Texans, while the Titans return home after a 42-19 loss to the Washington Commanders in Landover. Over-under is 39.5. Tennessee is favored by 3.5.
This is a tough one. I'm going to go with Tennessee. They've played in so many games that they should have won, and they end up losing. I think Jacksonville's just what they need right now to come to their home field. I'll take Tennessee minus the 3.5 at home.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jacksonville's a little banged up right now. Tennessee's offense hasn't looked that bad. They just find ways to lose games. I do think this is a good one for them to get under their belt, though. So I'm also going to go Titans to win and cover at home. Next up, the 3-9 Carolina Panthers head to Quaker City to face off against the 10-2 Philadelphia Eagles. 1 p.m. kickoff at Lincoln Financial Field on Fox. Carolina hits the road looking to avoid 3 straight losses after a 26-23 overtime defeat at the hands of the Tampa Bay Bucks, while the Eagles return home looking for their 9th straight victory after defeating the Ravens by 5 in Baltimore. Over-under is 45.5. Philly is favored by 12.5.
Yeah, the Panthers have been playing well the last few weeks. The Chiefs, the Bucks, I mean, they played them both really well. 12.5 is a lot, but I also feel like there's probably a comeback down to earth moment coming for them soon. So I'll take Philly minus the 12.5.
Yeah, Philly's clearly the better team, but the Panthers, to your point, have been playing teams closer than they should. And I don't, 12.5 just seems a little salty to me. I'm going to take Carolina here to keep it within the 12.5. Next is the 6-6 Atlanta Falcons flying north to Minneapolis to battle the 10-2 Minnesota Vikings, 1 p.m. at US Bank Stadium on Fox. Atlanta hits the road looking to avoid their 4th straight loss after getting beat by the Chargers 17-13, while the Vikings stay home looking for their 6th straight win after a 1-point victory over the visiting Arizona Cardinals. Over-under is 46.5. Minnesota is favored by 5.5.
Yeah, I'm getting really sick of these fucking teams. I need to beat these teams not winning. Last week, I had the Ravens at Philly. And Justin Tucker missed 35 field goals. Last week, we had the Cardinals at Minnesota. They'd lead the entire game and blew it at the end. Hopefully, Kirk Cousins, I know he's been asked the last few weeks, but hopefully he wants to come back to this goddamn team and show them something. So I'm taking Minnesota minus 5.5. I hope Cousins finds a way to win this game, though.
Oh, man, you teed it up. Now I got to scribble stuff out here. Kirk had one of the worst games in his career last week.
It's so bad.
He can't have the same performance if they want to take Minnesota at home. I do think this is a revenge game for him, though. So I expect him to shake the rust off a little bit. I do think Minnesota is going to win this game, but I'm going to take the Falcons to keep it within 5.5. Next up, the 3-9 New York Jets head to South Beach to take on the 5-7 Miami Dolphins, 1 p.m. at Hard Rock Stadium on CBS. New York hits the road looking to avoid their 4th straight loss after getting beat by the Seahawks 26-21, while the Dolphins return home looking to shake off a 30-17 loss at the hands of the Packers in Green Bay. Over-under is 45.5. Miami is favored by 6.5.
This is such a terrible game. Like at the beginning of the year, this is one of those games that like you look forward to, and now you look at it and you're like, Jesus. 6.5 seems like a lot to me. I don't, in neither one of these teams. I'll take the Jets with the points just for the sake of, I don't think either of these teams are that great.
Yeah, the Jets are a mess. Tua has never lost to the Jets. Miami's won the last 8 at home in the series. So for those reasons, I'm going to take the Fins minus the points to get a W here and cover, hopefully by a touchdown. The last of our early matchups features the 4-8 New Orleans Saints as they head to East Rutherford to face off against the 2-10 New York Giants. 1 p.m. at MetLife Stadium on Fox. New Orleans heads north after a 7-point loss at the hands of the visiting Los Angeles Rams, while the Giants return home looking to avoid their 8th straight loss after losing 27-20 to the Cowboys in Jerry World. Over-under is 40.5. New Orleans is favored by 4.5.
Yeah, the Saints losing Taysom Hill, I think, is huge. The Coach Rizzler, he's really been loving Taysom Hill since he's got the job. I think that impacts him enough. I'm going to take the Giants here plus the 4.5.
Yeah, another team that's a mess is the Giants. Now they'll be without a key defensive piece in Dexter Lawrence as well. Neighbors obviously isn't happy. I think there's a lot going on in this organization. A lot of guys are unhappy. So for all those reasons, I'm going to take the Saints to win and cover on the road.
Yeah, seems like a lot of changes probably coming in this organization.
Yes, for sure. Our 4 p.m. matchups kick off with an NFC West showdown as the 7-5 Seattle Seahawks fly south to take on the 6-6 Arizona Cardinals. 4:05 p.m. kickoff at State Farm Stadium on CBS. Seattle continues their road trip and looks for their 4th straight victory after a 5-point win over the Jets in East Rutherford, while the Cardinals return home looking to avoid their 3rd straight loss after a frustrating 1-point defeat at the hands of the Vikings in Minneapolis. Over-under in this one is 44.5. Arizona is favored by 2.5.
Yeah, I truly feel Arizona is the better team here, returning back home. This is a huge game. Like, this is probably one of the biggest games of the week when it comes to playoff situations. So I'm actually on the cards here.
Yeah, Seattle won the last matchup by 10 and held Arizona to 6 points. I don't think that's going to happen this time around, but I am confident in what Geno can do. I think he's going to get enough to get a road win here, take control of the NFC West. So I'm going to take Seattle in the points here. Next up, the 4-8 Chicago Bears head to the Bay Area to battle the 5-7 San Francisco 49ers. 4:25 p.m. kickoff at Levi Stadium on Fox. Chicago looks to avoid their 7th straight loss after losing to the Lions by 3 in Detroit on Thanksgiving, while the Niners surprisingly look to avoid their 4th straight loss after losing to the Buffalo Bills by 25 on Sunday night in the Snow Globe. Over-under is 44.5. San Fran is favored by 3.5.
And this is a tough one because, the Bears get the bump from firing a coach. Niners have so many injuries. God, this is a tough one also. Caleb back in California too. Let's go Niners here. This just seems like a game the Bears probably should win, but probably will end up getting smoked. So I'll take the Niners.
Yeah, Chicago may find a way to lose this game, but I just have a feeling it's going to be close. So I'm going to take the 3.5. I don't know if they're going to win it, but I'm going to take Chicago in the 3.5 here. The last of our 4 p.m. games has the 10-2 Buffalo Bills heading to Inglewood to take on the 6-6 Los Angeles Rams. 4:25 p.m. at SoFi Stadium on Fox. Buffalo heads west riding a 7-game winning streak and looks for their 8th straight victory after beating the 49ers 35-10 in Buffalo, while the Rams return home after a 7-point win over the Saints in New Orleans. Over-under is 49.5. Buffalo is favored by 4.5.
I can only imagine the noise of the Bills fans in SoFi. It's going to be ridiculous. I think the Rams defense is good enough to actually keep them in this game. Man, 4.5 is low though. I think you got to go Bills here. I'll take Bills minus 4.5.
Yeah, I think the Bills are streaking, putting up a ton of points right now, and they're within that hunt for the 1 seed. So I think they're going to come into this game hot. The Rams may make this close because I think they're definitely a better team than 6-6, but I'm going to go Buffalo here to win and cover. Our Sunday night football matchup is an AFC West showdown as the 8-4 Los Angeles Chargers head to the heart of America to battle the 11-1 Kansas City Chiefs. 8:20 p.m. kickoff at Arrowhead Stadium on NBC. LA is 4-1 in their last 5 and look to carry their momentum forward after a 4-point victory over the Falcons in Atlanta, while the Chiefs stay home looking for their 3rd straight win after defeating the Raiders 19-17. Over under is 42.5. KC is favored by 3.5.
Yeah, finally the Chiefs have a little bit of a lower line. Normally they're like 5 or 6, and they always sleepwalk through and don't cover. I think 3.5 is good though. I'm going to take the Chiefs at home to cover this one on Sunday night.
Yeah, KC won the last matchup by 7, controlled the Chargers ground game, and now LA is going to be without Dobbins. Pacheco's also back, and he's going to give them a little bit different level of an offense. I know they've not been covering spreads very well this year, but I am going to take the Chiefs to win and cover in this one. Our Monday Night Football battle features the 4-8 Cincinnati Bengals as they travel to Jerry World for a Simpsons showdown to face off against the 5-7 Dallas Cowboys. 8:15 p.m. kickoff at AT&T Stadium on ESPN. Cincinnati has now lost 3 in a row and looks to avoid their 4th straight after a high-scoring 44-38 defeat at the hands of the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cincinnati, while the Cowboys stay home looking for their 3rd straight victory after beating the Giants by 7 on Thanksgiving. Over-under is 49.5. Cincy is favored by 5.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take Cincinnati. Going to Dallas inside. Cincinnati is such a good team. I just don't understand. Their situation is very odd to me. But I think they're going to be enough for Dallas. Dallas is still kind of all over the place, honestly, with their situation. But they were a little better last week. But I still think Cincinnati's got too much for them.
Yeah, since he's been sliding, their defense can't stop a nosebleed, which makes me a little optimistic in this one. I don't know if the Cowboys are going to come out on top, but I like getting the 5.5 here. Losing Dak has forced them to lean more into the ground game. We're not doing this 3-headed monster bullshit. We're giving the ball to Dowdle. Quicker passes coming out of Cooper Rush. We've got a couple guys back on defense. For all of those reasons, I'm going to take my boys here plus the 5.5 to at least cover, if not get an outright win. Bye week teams this week are the Broncos, Colts, Patriots, Commanders, Ravens, and Texans. All right, Jake, let's move on to locks of the week. Who you got?
My lock of the week is the Bills going to the Rams. I think 4.5 is just too low. I think the Bills are going to be able to go in there. It's going to be the furthest away home crowd of all time because they will have a very big home crowd advantage in SoFi Stadium. But I like the Bills returning to inside to normal weather to keep it rolling against the Rams.
We'll keep this one quick and simple. I'm with you. I think Buffalo is going to come into LA and get it done. Who's your dog?
Our underdog of the week, sadly, Thursday night. I'm going to take the Packers to go into Ford Field and win again and beat the Lions.
Got plus 144 there. I am going to go with Seattle at Arizona. I just think the Hawks know that there's an opportunity to grab firm control of the NFC West, and they're going to get it done. So I'm going to take Seattle here as my dog. All right, guys. That is it for us for week 14. Please like, share, subscribe. Those of you who watched us live, we appreciate you guys joining. For Jacob Workman, this is Reese Downing. We'll have the NCAA show coming live here in just a minute. Reese isn't the only Cowboys homer this week. The Simpsons game is going to be awesome. Thank you, Ike, for the drop in at the last second here. We'll catch you guys on the NCAA side here. Just give us a couple minutes and we'll be back live with y'all. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
College football playoff bracket out in just a couple minutes. We'll be live with it in just a second.
Let's go.